Hello, everyone. My guest today is Amit Bendov. He's the co-founder and CEO of Gong.io, the number one revenue intelligence platform for sales. He brings more than 20 years of leadership experience in hypergrowth enterprise software startups, managing product marketing and sales for global corporations. Prior to founding Gong.io, he was the CEO of Sysense and CMO of Panaya. Amit, you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
So you're very specific there in calling Gong a revenue intelligence platform for sales. Help me understand what that means.
Yeah, so revenue intelligence is kind of a new thing. The majority of the world still doesn't know what it is, but over like 1,000 companies already do. It's a new paradigm for managing customer-facing organizations rather than relying on information that salespeople and customer support people manually type into their CRM system or support systems. Gong automatically captures like information from the customer's mouth by reading their emails, by joining calls, by joining meetings, using natural language understanding to compile that information, create insights both for the customer-facing people, how they can get better, and for the leadership team so they can understand exactly what's going on without having to chase people to update the forms.
And this is obviously something that people are using not only just like they were pre-COVID, but reading some of the press that you put out during COVID, it sounds like you significantly increased revenue during COVID. I want to dive into that, but on the back end of that, you just did another funding round, I believe. So help us understand what's the structure look like today? How have you funded the company?
So the most recent round is the Series D, $200 million. Led by Code2, Thrive, Salesforce, and Index. This is the fourth round, so total to date, I think it's like almost $340 million. The last round was led by Sequoia in December, $65 million.
And the valuation on this most recent round was what?
It was close to $2.2 billion.
And what was it back in December?
It was close to 750, so 3x.
Yeah, so I asked that very specifically, right? Because now I want to dive into that. How on earth do you essentially add $1.5 billion in enterprise value over a 6-month period when the world is also shutting down?
There's a number of reasons for that. So we always grew like very fast. So we always tripled the valuation about the same time. Like even like the last round was a significant like multiplier. So we're not growing just because of like COVID. We did pretty well before that. I think we've done well regardless. But there are a few reasons. First, it does give us like some tailwind. Second, the potential for Gong is so infinite and now more and more people in the investment community are starting to recognize this. So they're looking at something like massive market potential, very nice execution and traction, seems to be faring well with the new normal, right? So, and there aren't a lot of investment opportunities, there's a lot of liquidity, and so there you have it.
So walk me through, how you're getting customers. You launched the company, I believe, back in 2015, 2016, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And when you asked him on the show in February of 2018, you shared you were serving out 200 customers. How many customers are you serving today? And then break down how you're acquiring them.
Now we're approaching like 1,500, maybe a little less. And we're acquiring, it's mostly direct. So we haven't even started developing like channels and partners. It's either like outbound calls. We've got a good amount of inbounds, a lot of like referrals and word of mouth. So people that sales has like I think about like 15 to 20% annual attrition. But actually that's worked well for us because if I use Gong at my current company and I'm leaving another, odds are we'll get a new lead. So that like kind of organic word of mouth has been like pretty good for us.
I don't obviously pay for the product. I'm not a big enterprise, but when I do get a sneak peek at the product UI, I see GIFs where there's like 2 call recordings with highlighted sections between the top performing rep that kills quota and one that misses. And you'll see like the one that hits quota, you'll say, hey, they use words like your and you will, and the one that doesn't hit never uses the word you or your, or if you pay us, you will get X. This is obviously a unique insight. Now, do other sort of platforms in your space do that, or is that unique to Gong?
I mean, we're not the first to do that. So first, they're like in contact centers, they're like technology doing something like similar. It's like, it's pretty far, but I mean, just the idea of identify which words we were saying, we did not invent that. There are some other platforms that do some of that, like even Zoom has some, transcription capabilities. Definitely the CRM has some lightweight capabilities. So it'll allow you to identify what people are saying, right? But not, to my knowledge, anything that compiles in terms of like actionable insights that you could actually use to improve. So that right now we're kind of like alone. We'll probably not stay like that forever.
Help me understand adoption inside these 1,500 customers. How many total reps are using the platform across this paid customer base?
I think it's something to the tune of 60,000, tens of thousands for sure. The adoption is fantastic, and Gong is also unique in something like almost like bizarre. Our net promoter score is 72 right now, which for people that don't know what it is, it's like net promoter score is maybe like minus 100 to plus 100. And the iPhone, when it was launched, was at 66, right? And that's probably the most successful consumer product that you can think of. Gong is rated higher, which is an anomaly for an enterprise software product, right? Usually it's not something people get so excited, but it is like a consumer level excitement, and that helps drive the growth.
Is that NPS score, Amit, transitioning over to really, really strong net revenue retention numbers annually?
Yeah. So our NDR is almost always like, even these days, north of like 150%. And
115 or 150?
150. And that's like, it's best in class. I mean, we have like several tiers of customers. It varies. Obviously, the large customers do more, the small customers do less. But I mean, fantastic retention numbers.
Yeah, I mean, just so people can have context around that, when you look at publicly traded SaaS companies, the average NDR, net revenue retention, is usually around 115, 120%. So yes, 150% net revenue retention is really incredible. Now, I imagine you probably see sort of power laws on your base where you might take one account that's paying you $1 million per year and double it to $2 million. So there's 200% growth in one account. And obviously that juices those numbers, right?
Yeah, but that's not an anomaly. We're starting to get more and more of these. So that's fair game.
Paint the picture of the $1 million account. How many reps does that team probably have on you, and what's their usage look like?
I mean, I'd rather not get into specifics, but definitely like thousands of people. So we have some large customers with like global deployments of thousands of people, and that can get them definitely into the 7 figures.
And when you peel back the 150% net revenue retention and you look at gross revenue churn before you add back expansion, what are you seeing on a gross revenue churn basis annually?
With the larger customers, it's like close to zero. I mean, occasionally you do get some, but very little. These are like very stable, and it could be a little higher on the SMB, like if you're small businesses. Like, for example, right now, even like COVID, although overall we're doing pretty well, but there are obviously customers who are like hurt badly by the situations that are like hospitality industry or restaurant industry. But in most accounts, it's like very low.
So break with that sort of understanding, and obviously the growth has also been impressive in terms of just valuation, also customer growth over the past 2-3 years. Help me understand how your team has changed over that time period. So you told me you had just 52 folks on the team back in early 2018. What are you at today?
Close to 300, I think 330. It changes by the day. So yeah, about 330 people. We have been like pretty cash efficient largely because the product strength and which drives like strong unit economics. So we haven't even touched. We're still running on a Series D money, right? We raised the Series D. We did not start touching the Series C money we raised in December, and we still have a pretty long way to go with the Series B, right? So we've been like pretty efficient in how we got to like 2.2 valuation, right? Which reflects kind of like the growth that's still ahead of us with like very low cash. So the team is actually like, definitely grew substantially compared to 217 or whenever we spoke back then. But we've been pretty efficient and never had to go crazy.
I mean, just to be clear, it sounds like you still have the majority of that 65 million from your last round in the bank, plus the extra 200 today. So, I mean, so you've got sort of a war chest of somewhere like.
Yeah, not the majority, the entirety.
Got it. So you have like 260 million or so in the bank right now. You can do whatever you want with it.
More. Yeah.
That's a lot of pianos you can buy.
Yeah, maybe buy like the Latka business or something.
I appreciate that about you. A lot of sort of tech CEOs, when they get at your stage, they sort of lose their personality. So I so appreciate when I see you, putting up and sort of being self-deprecating, even though I think you play pretty darn well on your LinkedIn videos.
Yeah.
Let's back into here to understand more about sort of ACV growth, right? So as companies do what you've done, grow very fast, you almost always see ACV expansion. You told me back again in early 2018, the average customer is paying about $30,000 in terms of average ACV. What's that ACV up to today on average?
Well, I didn't tell you that. You kind of calculated the number.
Oh, did I bet?
It was. I remember that interview, but it was less than that. Right now, it's north of 30. I mean, if you. Yeah, so just looking at the average, Gong is like entire spectrum of customers. We have like on the lower end, it could be usually the minimum would be like 15K for smaller customers, and 7 figures on the upper tiers, and like all the range in between. Like, and again, this is like happening pretty fast. Like we always thought that one day, like. We'll get to like very large customers, but actually started like reaching out to us like a lot sooner. So for a company our age, we're pretty diverse in terms of like size of customers.
So just to repeat that back to you, people can get started for as little as $15,000 a year just to start using Gong. They then can expand over time, and you have customers paying north of $1 million a year to use Gong.
Yes.
Any eyes on your first $10 million a year account? I mean, how do you get there? You have to upsell obviously like crazy, get thousands and thousands of seats on them.
I don't know. I mean, it's not that it's kind of like a trophy that we need to accomplish. I'm sure it will. And we're kind of like long-term minded. It's not about things. We grew because of the rate of reviews that we get from customers. That's what we want to get, and I'm sure things will.
The rate of what?
The rave, we call it like raving fans. It's our number one operating principle, and we don't want to just happy customers. We want this kind of like NPS, so like in the 70s, and that's actually drive the growth. So usually we'll get into accounts, and other teams will start wanting Gong. Why do these guys have? And they, say, oh, this is pretty cool. I wanted to. So it actually spreads virally within the account. We're not necessarily trying to land like an 8-figure deal on day one.
Yep. Now, Amit, if I take the 1,500 obviously customers times even $30,000 ACV, it sounds like obviously you have a range, and maybe it's higher than that on average today. But averages aside, I mean, that puts you north of a $45 million run rate today. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're well north of that.
Do you have eyes on, again, I'm just comparing this to other Series D founders I've had on, right? I mean, I assume you're getting close if you haven't already passed a $100 million run rate. Do you think you can do that this year if you haven't passed it already?
No. We're not going to get to 100 million this year, but we're not far from that.
Okay, interesting. And what, in terms of strategy to get there, whether it's, again, it sounds like it'll be more than this year, maybe next year, do you think it will more be a function of your upsell and expansion team driving more adoption and then increasing accounts respectively, or will it be new customer additions completely?
We have both. So we always like kind of like we have two things working. First, like very strong new logo acquisition, and second, like great expansion within customers. And we always have to like calibrate. Sometimes there are a lot of expansions, so the new team like people don't necessarily need to sell as many new logos. So we started breaking the accounts and make sure we pull both levers. But both of them are pretty strong. I mean, I've kind of shared with you the zone of our NDR. Plus the new logo, that's what drives the strong growth.
Well, I mean, if you look at revenue growth over the past 12 months, what percent of the growth would you say came from expansion versus new ads altogether? Do you know?
I don't even like the top of my head.
Okay.
Both are substantial. Like
fair enough.
Yeah.
What about altogether? Ignore cohorts of where the growth came from. Just total revenue growth past 12 months. What was that?
We have listen, we have customers, so our history, I mean, we started selling like in 2016, so we have about like 3 years of history. Those cohorts are around like 250 and north, right, percent of what they bought, and they're still like, most of them are still with us, right? So yep. Very, very strong growth over time and retention, lifetime value, like all those metrics. I mean, that's one of the things about the valuation that our unit economics are very strong, and the product power is driving that.
Are there any, Amit, really strong unit economics that you guys are very proud of and you worked really hard to hit that I haven't already asked about?
I mean, you name it. So NDRs are, LTV to CAC is like greater than 5. I mean, it's a virtual infinite with like very little churn that we have. And
tell me more, Amit. Tell me more. Let's touch on, before we wrap up, let's just touch on CAC real quick. So let's just use a new $30,000 ACV account. What are you comfortable spending to get that account in terms of CAC?
I could easily spend like 30,000 because with very little churn, I could get like 150,000 at least, and maybe like even more. So yeah, we're not spending 30,000, but we could, and then it will still be like pretty good business.
Where are you spending money when you are getting new customers? Obviously, it sounds like you have an inside sales team. Are you doing any paid?
We get so obviously we're spending on product, right? So product drives product. Gives you like pricing power, it gives stickiness, and it gets people to talk about you. So that's like always like our thinking. Second, we do some paid ads. Most of our inbound, it's hard to measure exactly, right? Because these things are all like intertwined. But content marketing it's been like very strong for us, especially on social media. So we have we create content is like very different and people absolutely love, right? We have like 3 attributes for content. First, that it's easy to consume. So not like 13 pages white papers that nobody budgets to read. Second, it's immediately applicable. It's not some kind of bold ideas that you could apply in 20 years, something I could use right now. You said about those words or things. And 3, it is relevant to our audience, but only to our audience. It doesn't interest doctors or dentists or beauticians, right? It only interests people. So it's kind of like self-qualifying. And that's creating a lot of following. And it drives, not necessarily someone reads the blog post. I mean, I got it by Gong, right? But it does, over time, it does create like recognition. People say, oh, this is interesting. Who's that company? Where are they getting this data? Why is everybody talking about it? And that drives a lot of inbound.
Do you know how many new trials you're getting every month because of these strategies?
We get a ton, and again, we don't know exactly. We kind of gave up on trying to know exactly where they come from. It's not like a specific ad or anything. We do some of those, but it's like, I spoke with a buddy and he mentioned Gong, and one of my coworkers mentioned Gong, and I read a blog post, and I saw an ad, and I downloaded an asset, and
the strategy makes total sense to me. Yeah, that strategy makes sense.
I think if people try to overanalyze, you kind of do things that they're real and genuine over time, they pay a big dividend.
Yep. Last team questions here before we wrap up with the famous five. Of your team of 330, how many are engineers?
We have about 90.
90. Wow. Okay. And how many sales reps do you have that actually carry a quota?
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, but definitely something in that like 60, 70. There are also SDRs that carry partial, so anywhere between like 50 to 100.
Do you give your CSMs quota if they're only focused on driving expansion revenue, or no?
The CSMs are measured mostly on NPS. They're not salespeople. They want to make sure the customer is getting like the best possible service. They kind of do have like NPS and renewal rate, which is kind of proxy, but it's a very small portion of their compensation. So they don't try to pressure the customer or anything, just to keep things top of mind.
All right, Amit, let's wrap up here. Famous five. Number one, favorite business book.
How to Be a Capitalist.
You're supposed to make me feel good at the beginning of the interview, so that I go easier on my questions, right?
I read a lot. I read a lot. Right now I'm reading none, but
what's it called?
Origin Story. Right now it's more of like a history book. It explains a lot of things by David Christian. It's a pretty good book. Not like strictly a business book, but it does give like a lot of like interesting angles about the world and where it's coming from.
A lot of patterns applicable to business in that book. Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
I wouldn't say following, but I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs. Like, I only wish it was like a nicer people version of him, but it's like product and market thinking, definitely like that'll be my choice.
Number three, Amit, besides Gong, what's your favorite online tool for building your company?
Easily LinkedIn. LinkedIn is massive for me and I think for our company.
Number four, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Like 5. I'd say no more than 5. Yeah.
No more. That's not a lot.
It's not. It's just my clock. I don't even like set an alarm clock. That's where I wake up like on my own on a weekend, right? So I don't need a lot of sleep.
That's great. And what's your situation? Are you married, single, kids?
Married, 2 boys, 16 and 20. Happily married, like same woman for like 26 years.
Wow. And how old are you?
I'm 56.
How old? 36, 56?
36? Do I look 36?
I was going to say, holy mackerel. Okay. You said 56?
56, yeah.
56. Okay. Last question. What's something you wish you knew when you were 20?
I wanted to be in a rock band. I never wanted to be like in tech. That was the plan. Didn't quite work out as well, but I'm pretty happy where I am.
What instrument would you have played if you joined a rock band?
Guitar for sure. I still play like when I get a little bit of time, but yeah.
I love that, guys. Amit, there you have it. Gong.io. They've been in the news recently, did a $200 million raise at a $2.2 billion valuation. That was up from a $750 million valuation just about 8 months prior when they did their $65 million raise back in December of 2019. They're serving over 1,500 enterprise customers. Over 60,000 sales reps use the platform actively. Again, a new way to really measure and gain revenue intelligence from your sales functions as they look to continue to scale. They won't hit $100 million in run rate this year, but obviously is on their radar as they continue to scale, focus on expansion revenue, where net revenue retention today is over 150%. Amit, thanks for taking us to the top.
Thanks very much, Nathan. My pleasure.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers, they try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.